right, welcome to Deals and Deadlines, your sports business podcast with Hadley Engelhardt, the Natalie attired Hadley Engelhardt. I'm Matt Chernoff. Thanks so much for joining us, doing all things sports business. This podcast drops with new episodes each and every Friday. And if you're watching us, you know this, but if you're not, you can see us on the 680 The Fan YouTube channel. All right, Hadley, we got a lot of stuff to get into here today. I want to follow up on a discussion we had last week about private equity entering college football, which I don't even know if we should call it college football anymore. Let's call it Pros 2.0. But we've now learned more that a company called Elevate has launched a $500 million fund with two schools that are already on board. Boise State, close to its own deal, signaling a new era of outside investment. So what have we learned more about the impact here of private equity, and what is it going to look like, and how does it change some of these schools like Boise who needs the influx of money?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this, and we'll continue to talk about this, that money is the king in the sport, and the schools that don't have the additional resources and additional funds like the Power Four schools have to go to different avenues to find it. And going through private equity, which is now being allowed, is going to enable these teams to better finance their teams, their facilities, and all the other things that come along with running a sports program. Budgets are only going up. Salaries for coaches are only going up. Obviously, revenue sharing is going up, which is a new thing that they're now taking part of their positive cash flow is now going toward the student athletes. And then lastly, you have the NIL. So, I mean, you've got all these different factors. And so we've talked about it. What's the return for the private equity? I don't see much of a return because the value can go up, but then you have to sell your shares or whatever that may be. But I think it's more about the ability to, finance it above the table as opposed to underneath the table,
right,
which has been happening for many years. Not at this level, obviously, but it's a big deal, and it's only going to get bigger for especially these mid-major schools.
So let's talk about that, because I had a thought the other day, and I was having a conversation about the old guard in college football and college sports with guys getting paid under the table.
Allegedly. Let's clarify that.
Okay.
Allegedly.
Right, you say allegedly. I'll go and...
I saw some handshakes in college.
I know.
Allegedly.
And we've had SMUs, and we've had... Okay, well, fine. If it makes you feel better, we'll say allegedly. But now that we're going to have a salary cap of sorts in college spending where you can dedicate it to your team, and we're still going to have NILs, what's to stop now? Getting back to the days of like, okay, we can only spend $20.5 million on a roster. There's some NIL dollars, but I'm going to Venmo this guy $20,000. I'm going to PayPal this guy. Why? How are we going to be able to keep guards on all this stuff? It feels like we can get back to the days now with there's so much money. How would you have checks and balances on it?
Well, I think there's actually be more checks and balances because they're being very strict about this $20.5 million. Obviously, that number will go up every year. It will be distributed accordingly to the teams, whether the conference as a whole decide, here's how we're going to distribute it percentage-wise to different programs, both men and women's sports, and that's a whole other subject matter about Title IX. But it's going to be a very interesting balance on how teams go ahead and distribute it. Then you've got the NIL money, which we all know the NIL up until now was really boosters paying players.
It was paid for play.
There really wasn't name, image, and likeness. I mean, the intent behind it, which we've talked about, it kind of started, the dialogue started with Tim Tebow, believe it or not, how Florida was using his name, image, and likeness to a degree, selling jerseys, and really capitalizing financially on his image. Well, so that parlayed into where we are today. It is not name, image, and likeness. It is a platform that we're saying is for name, image, and likeness, but these people do not have enough following. There's not enough analytics. There's not enough return on investment. And again, we always use the terminology, well, what is true value? What someone's willing to pay? But if the intent is just to pay these players, then let's just pay them. And Deloitte is overseeing this name, image, and likeness. Anything over $600 has to go through this filtering process. Once the bar is set on what is considered name, image, and likeness, then the floodgates will open up and people will be able to find ways to compensate these athletes so they're getting above and beyond what the settlement's paying them. Okay,
so a couple of thoughts on NIL. We have a player at South Carolina, a really good young quarterback, Lenora Sellers, who allegedly turned down $8 million in a transfer opportunity through NIL to make those dollars. His dad comes out and says, you're 19 years old, you don't need $8 million. You're in a great spot. Do we believe it?
Not a chance.
Yeah.
Obviously, we don't know for sure. I can tell you, I've had dialogue personally as well as to colleagues in my industry. No player is getting $8 million from another university. Again, we have restrictions now because of the settlement. So those numbers of $8 million don't work in $20 million for the entire sports program. So it's all misleading. Every number you hear is exaggerated. Now, there can be deals done when you're the upper echelon. We'll use Cooper Flagg, for example, who's a marquee basketball player, projected to be the first player in the draft at the premier University of Duke, signed deals that were not specifically related just to his college career, but to his pro career as well. New Balance, things like that, because he couldn't even wear New Balance. It was a Nike school. So these were deals done while he was playing, but they were for post-college playing. Is this quarterback from South Carolina getting that kind of money? No. Now, will South Carolina fans pony up to give that kind of money? Definitely will give him.
It's interesting you bring that up, because right when I read it, I went, I have a hard time believing it, but let's put a number out there, and now South Carolina can say, well, look at the value on our own quarterback. We might need to raise our bar when it comes to paying him, whether it's with the new salary cap or NIL dollars, to make sure nobody comes after him again next year.
Yeah, and of everything that was addressed with this quarterback is his father saying, you don't need $8 million. Well, that's business 101. Everyone needs $8 million.
Well, I want a better father experience. You need $8 million.
So the intent with the father, I think, was saying is, we're not making decisions about money only. What are you going to do with $8 million? Well, you're going to invest the $8 million, and therefore you can now pick your path of what you want to do moving forward. Who says his NFL path is going to be there? Who says injuries are not going to be a factor? You can get more insurance. You can invest it wisely. So to say that, who needs $8 million, I get what he's saying in theory, but it's about growing his brand. It's about making as much money, and he's happy where he is. He's getting handsomely paid. And that gets back to also, with Deloitte, we're going to know what people are going to be making. There is no accountability. We have no idea. Carson Beck, we heard $2 million. We heard $4 million. We don't know what those numbers are.
Do you know who
all being exaggerated?
Who would inflate those kind of numbers?
Not agents.
Not agents, no.
That kind of stuff.
No.
And that's the other thing, by the way. Most of these people representing these college athletes for NIL aren't what you see as traditional agents. I spoke with a general manager of a Power 4 team recently, and I asked him that question about what is the breakdown. He said about 60% of the people that he's dealing with are just regular people who are now wearing the agent hat, have no educational background, experience. All they're doing is representing somebody that they either were a coach, a cousin, a friend, etc. Then of the other remaining 40%, 20% of them are young agents trying to make a name for themselves, and then the last 20% are seasoned agents who are trying to do it the right way, looking at not just the money, but the program, the fit, the alumni, the degree. We're always forgetting about this degree.
Oh yeah, there's that, right?
And by the way, to go to school now, to a big school, it could be north of $60, $70 million a year. My son went to Tulane. It was over $80,000.
You said 60, 70 million. You meant 60, 70,000. I was going to say your kid's going to a nice place. Yeah.
But and he was on a full scholarship. But you think about these numbers that we're throwing out from the settlement and from NIL. Let's not forget about the $250,000 degree in education you're getting.
Okay, so here's the other aftermath of all the different business that we've seen in college athletics. This week, Louisiana Monroe cut its tennis program. Washington State cut a portion of its track program. This is just something we're going to see a fallout. You talked about Title IX, which is also going to be a part of this. There are so many other layers now to what's happening, because there's only so much of the pie to go around, that you are going to see a lot of the Olympic sports, as we've heard them, start to go away.
100%. And, we're now seeing some lawsuits via Title IX from women's sports, because they're not going to get the lion's share or a fair amount of money that's coming in with the settlement. And we're going to see come early, next year, exactly what teams are going to do. Later of this calendar year, what teams are going to actually do, or schools are going to do to allocate that money. But again, it's about revenue generating sports, and that's the threshold. It's not man versus woman. It's about what's bringing in money to the university. And listen, for all these programs, football is number one, men's basketball is number two. Possibly men's baseball is number three, and then you have other sports. And so they're using a formula to figure out how to allocate these funds, and it's going to be very interesting to see how a judge determines Title IX issues because of equality. And if a judge does determine that women should be paid equal, then you run into bigger problems, because there's less money for the power sports to finance it and move forward.
All right, one more quick topic here before we take our first break, and this is something you and I talk a lot about, the media business and the way things have pivoted when it comes to covering professional sports, college sports, and the importance now of streaming. Well, some numbers came in that, Hadley, I thought were really important. Streaming now represents nearly 45% of U.S. TV viewership. That happened in the month of May. It's the first time it's topped a combined share of broadcast and cable. So we've gone from streaming was this much, just a little bit, to now it's the overwhelming amount of the way we're watching and consuming regular TV, and I'll add sports to that. And I think the number's only going to get bigger. And for the sports and for the leagues, they see the cash opportunity. You and I have talked about this. It fractures your TV deal. You probably have fewer eyes than you had before, but the dollars are too hard to turn down.
Yeah, and I keep on looking at my phone because I took some notes that I wanted to discuss with this, is that, viewership is up. We talk about TV, and that's the only medium we're talking about. But streaming has grown in every type of a medium. But in sports, it's now becoming the last piece of the puzzle that is really enhancing at a big level. And so those numbers are up. Overall numbers are up. And the interesting thing about streaming, what these leagues like about it, is advertising-wise, because they know who's streaming. And when I'm streaming and you're streaming, we're not getting the same commercials necessarily. So we're able to target stuff and do things tailored to that specific audience, as opposed to a game that's on ABC, NBC, or CBS, where there's a national commercial. Right. You're not necessarily getting eyes on it, and there's interaction. So it's a positive thing. It just, for discussion purposes, we say things are down, and there are certain reasons why sports are down. But overall, streaming has enhanced the ability to watch it on many different platforms. Well,
I think you hit a key point there, though. The streamer, Netflix, Peacock, whomever, they can double dip, right? They can sell the subscriptions, but they can also sell the ad rates. So they're spending these huge dollars, whereas the broadcast, the traditional broadcast, the only way they're going to make it up is we're going to do it in sales of advertising. So there are some opportunities for the streamers to continue that.
True analytics, by the way.
Yeah, you have a better way of. Yeah.
There's a better way to like here, we're talking right now, we don't know who's watching it, but yet when you go ahead and see it on YouTube or on Spotify, there are analytics involved that we can see the hundreds of thousands or millions of people watching our show.
Wow, how about that?
Wait.
I would add, too, that when we see Major League Baseball's new deal, which is going to happen here shortly, you're going to see what I've talked about, the fracturing of all the different elements who are going to be carrying. There's going to be some broadcast, there's going to be some streamer, there's going to be some digital, and they're going to put it all together to come up with a bigger number when it comes to the pie. All right, coming up, we're going to talk to a GM in the UFL, which, if you haven't been paying attention, that was the XFL, and they combined leagues, put together, and they've now formed what they think is hopefully going to be a sustainable model for anything that's been spring football outside of National Football League stuff. So we'll talk to a GM whose team had big success and find out how that relationship's working with the NFL next. All right, welcome back to Deals and Deadlines, your sports business podcast with Hadley. I'm Matt. Thanks so much for making us a part of your day. Remember, new episodes drop each and every Friday. You can download them then. You can subscribe to make sure you get the new episodes and watch this fun on the 680 The Fan YouTube channel. All right, let's welcome in our next guest, who's a champion. He is the general manager of the DC Defenders, who just won the UFL Championship, Vaughn Hutchins, who's kind enough to join us here on Deals and Deadlines. Vaughn, first of all, congratulations. Thanks for making the time for us. How you doing?
Man, I appreciate it, Matt. Man, thank y'all for allowing me to be on, man, to kind of talk about our successes, ours. You know what I mean? Our successes, we, not me. Yes, sir.
I like it. Well, then, all right, so we'll do all the we's and the us's, but let's start with you, because I want to know, what was the feeling like for you right after the team wins the championship? You've got to have that satisfaction as being a part of the we putting this all together.
Man, obviously, man, we were excited, man. We've been overjoyed, man. Year one, man, OG 23, XFL. Barlow, myself, Tice, Stanton Harris, Greg Williams, and that group of guys went 10-1, and we lost in the championship game. We felt some type of way, right? 24 comes around. There was a lot of situations that were going on behind the scenes, and I didn't manage it correctly. 25 comes around. After continued growth, we put it back together, even though from an adversity standpoint, outside, it looked like it was a little different. Nah, inside, we were continuing to grow. So man, the level of respect that I have for these guys, man, the players, the OG 23 crew, Briley, Jordan, Mike Maietti, Andre Mintz, these guys, man, they deserved it. So I was excited and proud of these guys, man. No doubt.
So let me kind of give you some background and stuff. I've known Vaughn for seems like forever. Obviously, with his years in the NFL, from Atlanta to Oakland to you name it, Vaughn and I have known each other and worked together. And obviously, when he became the general manager of the DC Defenders, it gave us as agents a pipeline to send players to, that guys that were in the league that didn't have a true opportunity to go ahead and create more film, or guys that never really got an opportunity to do it. And so for everyone listening, Vaughn did a great job. And then as this year was about to begin, his head coach got a college job and up and left. And so you would think that this is going to go south, and it didn't, and other coaches. And there were a lot of things going on that left the program, and he kept the ship intact. So, but really, Vaughn, what I want to talk about, aside from congratulations on winning the championship, is, to explain to our listeners on the business front of how there's a weighing balance of, A, you want to win games, but B, your other job is to try to help these guys find opportunities to get in the NFL or back in the NFL. Can you elaborate on that?
Man, without question. So for us within our building, DC Defenders, man, obviously football is the platform, but we lead men. It's about the growth and development of men. And I tell these men, each individual that I've called, recruited, we've brought into our organization to be a part of our culture. Each individual, they're cut from the exact same cloth, regardless if they came from Kansas, Jersey, South Florida, Compton. It doesn't matter. We're cut from the same cloth. With that being said, absolutely, we wanted those guys to get a chance to get right back to the NFL. And in the process of doing that, we're teaching men that, hey, there's always a transition in life, So everybody cannot earn an opportunity to get back into the NFL for a variety of reasons, whether it's character concerns, whether it's medical, whether you're not even good enough from a performance standpoint. However, as men, since we're all cut from the same cloth, we need to be able to teach men that, man, even afterwards, we're going to transition to something different. Yes, we've been at the highest pinnacle, NFL, 1% of the 1%. However, at some point it's going to change. I've had to transition. If you're not getting NFL workouts in 2 years, that third year you don't get a workout, it's over. It is what it is. The league has said that. I didn't have to say that. The NFL said that. You know what I mean? At that point, man, you have to allow somebody else to come in and get their opportunity to get vested, to get the annuities, the 401k, the retirement, the pension. We have to allow these other players to do it. And Hadley, that's what I've talked to you about. Man, I will be consistent with our guys and make sure our culture remains the same. And at the same time, man, these players have to transition out, whether they transition to the NFL, wide receiver youth, 6 receivers back into the NFL past 2 years. And I got at least 4 or 5 that will go this year. That's just receivers. However, if you're not, and you have not gotten an NFL workout, that's not me saying that you're not good enough. That's the NFL, 32 teams, saying that you're not good enough. Guess what you got to do? You got to go to work. The work doesn't change. Now the profession changes. What do you want to do afterwards? Are you going to coach? Are you going to work with the FBI? Are you going to be an accountant? Are you going to be an entrepreneur? You're going to work in real estate? Whatever it is, you got to ask him upstairs that this is what I want to do, because I know for a fact that you're good enough to do the work, because you put your body on the line, you put your mind on the line, you put your time on the line.
Vaughn, let me ask you about let's talk about the level of play in the league for a second, because once it was the XFL, we know the USFL had theirs, the merger happened. What have you noticed about the level? How close is it to, if you want to call it NFL caliber? What level of play have you noticed over the last 24 months?
It's NFL talent. We're looking at NFL games. That's what it's NFL games. These guys are NFL players. And I'm not saying that because, I think that they are potentially. No, I'm saying it because these guys have played in the NFL. Y'all can see it. Fans can see it. Scouts, executives can see it on the tape. In the NFL, the level of talent, once the merger happened, it condensed the amount of players that were given an opportunity to actually play spring league ball. This level of talent is high. These executives, the other GMs, the other 7 GMs, we all have the same mindset as far as we're going to put top talent on the 120 in between the white lines. They're going to go out there and perform and do exactly what they want to do, which is put NFL talent on the field. The only reason they're here at this level is because of concerns, thoughts, or development. And we do all of that in the building.
Vaughn, do you think the NFL, like the old NFL Europe, will ever become a business partner within this league where they will work with these players, maybe allocate some of the younger players like they used to do in NFL Europe, so they become part of the UFL as opposed to just another entity that may deal with the UFL?
That's up to us. That's up to Russ Brandon, and who's the president of the league, and the people that he's hired in various areas to continue to work with partnerships with the NFL. The product on the field will be the product on the field, NFL players. If our leadership continues to do exactly what we see that they are doing, yes, it should be a feeder league. We should be able to partner with the NFL at points, but those are my own personal thoughts. How do we get to that point? That's beyond me. I can only control what I can control, which is within my building. You know, if I had a completely different job and was able to physically be able to do some of that work, that's different. I can only do my job. I can control what I can control. So, yes, it's involving the product on the field with NFL talent, the NFL in various aspects, the 4th and 12, that's a great rule. The go for 1, go for 2, go for 3. You know what? That allows Hadley not to go to the bathroom because there's an extra point. You have to see these coaches coach, because at any given point, it can be, we only got 6 points, or we have 9 points. It forces the coordinators to coach the 4th and 12 instead of the onside kick. We're talking about health and safety. It forces the offensive coordinator and the defensive coordinator to coach. Now we're talking about momentum. We played 25 snaps or 28 snaps of defense consecutively over 30 minutes of real time, 9 minutes of actual game time on defense. And I bet the fans were locked in, because even though we were up, it showed that at any given point, this game can and will be close.
Vaughn, it's a heck of a story. Congratulations on the championship and continued success down the line. We appreciate the time.
You know, I appreciate you guys.
All right, Vaughn, thanks, man.
All right.
There he is, Vaughn Hutchins. He is the GM of the champion UFL DC Defenders. Thanks to Vaughn for joining us. All right, coming up, there was a big trade made this week in Major League Baseball. It wasn't just made because of the talent. There were some other things going on behind the scenes. We'll pick Hadley's brain about that. Plus, there's a big trade being rumored around the NBA, but it doesn't seem like there's many interested parties, which we'll try to figure out all that next. All right, we continue with this episode of Deals and Deadlines with Hadley on Matt. I will remind you again, please subscribe. New episodes of the podcast drop each and every Friday. You can also watch us on the 680 The Fan YouTube channel. All right, Hadley, a couple of big transactions, at least one that went through and one that might be close. This past week, the Boston Red Sox traded Rafael Devers, really good player, 28, 29 years old, has got a good amount of money left on his contract, but there have been a lot of things going on behind the scenes that actually got out to the public. They wanted him to change positions in spring training when they signed Alex Bregman. He wasn't happy about that, said the organization lied to him. Then there were other talks about him behind the scenes, not being the best in the clubhouse. So it feels like what the Red Sox did, they have a supreme talent, but they traded him to clear up payroll, and as they think, it's the old addition by subtraction. They didn't like him around what was happening within the organization. That being said, they didn't get a great haul in return. So what do you as the agency, when your player, super talented, kind of causing a problem, gets dealt for lesser talent?
Well, listen, it's not the first or the last player that's gotten dealt because they're a headache or, as they call it, a cancer in the locker room. None of this was really behind the scenes. I mean, they knew when they brought Bregman in, and they told him after spring training that he was going to be our starting position player. Devers was going to be the DH. He didn't like that role. And then he had to stay quiet for a while because he was like 0 for 30 to start the season. He's obviously gotten hot since that. But, it took time. And I think this may have happened actually sooner, but because of the 0 for 30 start of the season, not easy trade bait. Now that he's hot again, you've got to find a suitor, and they probably were talking to several teams throughout the season to find out which is the best fit for him. So I think, number one, A, it's cash flow. B, it's the player is not happy. It's causing more problems than good. Time to get rid of him. So they trade him to the Giants. I don't know, and I've heard all the reports about, the Red Sox did not get a lot in return. I can tell you firsthand, I don't know of all the partners, all the minor leaguers that were involved. I can tell you one of them that I know intimately, in James Tibbs, ACC Player of the Year. We're filming this here in Atlanta. He played with my son with the East Cobb Yankees. I was his first 5-year-old all-star coach.
He overcame that.
He had definitely still playing the sport despite me. Trust me, many guys I coached in one sport and became stars in other sports. Tibbs is the real deal. They've already put him in AA. He just got out of school last year as a junior, ACC Player of the Year, left-handed hitting outfielder, stud. He's going to be a future star player, I think, in the Red Sox sooner than later. The other pieces, again, I think it's all about possibilities, growth. And again, when you trade for young players, they may not be what you're looking for, but if they're high prospects, they could be trade bait down the road somewhere else.
Sure.
So there's a lot of different moving parts. Short term for the Red Sox, they've got to replace the DH. They've got people in place they like. Long term, it saves them money, and they've got some young prospects they can grow with and hopefully be part of the future Red Sox organization.
Devers has already said he'll play whatever position the Giants want him to play.
Of course, right?
So he's making $31 million a year. You say what you need to say. Okay, over to the NBA, where the Suns are trying to trade Kevin Durant. And you think, well, everybody would be interested in Durant to a degree. He's got a year left on his deal. It's a huge amount of money. He's 36, about to be 37, still supremely talented. But I saw one report, and who knows what's real, that the Suns are asking for the moon and the stars. So one report had them asking the Spurs for the number 2 pick in the draft, Stephon Castle, who was the Rookie of the Year, and then a couple of other picks. And the Spurs are like, well, if we do that, we're breaking up part of a core for 1 year of Durant. There are some other teams that have been interested, but not at the price that the Suns want to pay. So we hear what them saying, we might keep him. Well, that means nobody's answering what they want to give or what they want to return for Durant. It's a weird situation because the talent's there, but you don't want to give up too much of your core because he's not the player that can carry you to the championship like you once could.
Correct. No matter what sport it is, when teams are really interested in trading a player, they look for a fair market value of where the player is in his career, his age, his contract, all those different factors. When you're asking for something that's the first pick, second pick in the draft, you're not really trying to trade that player because, again, whatever team trades for you is going to want to do an extension. They're not going to want to do it for a 1-year deal. And if no teams want to do that, they're going to have to bring him back. I expect either A, they're going to lower their demands, or B, he's going to finish there in Phoenix because he's not the player. We're not playing Xbox with Kevin Durant on there. He's aged. His minutes have gone down. It's not going to go up. It's only going to go down. Yeah. The sprained ankle that used to take a day or a week takes several weeks. Sure. So, and that's just the way it is, not him, but any player as they get older. And you always admire these players that are in their mid-30s playing at this high level. It's truly amazing to watch them. But
he does need to go to a place where they have other really talented people.
He can't be option A anymore.
Correct. And if he is, it's a good team, but you just saw him option A with the Suns with Devin Booker. They didn't make the play-in.
Correct.
To give you an idea.
Right. So there's a lot of different things. if the Suns are really, really interested in trading him, they're going to lower their demands. That way they can move on for him, get some young piece of the puzzle, just like we just talked about the Red Sox. I mean, it's the same thing, different sport. And so, and then when they say, oh, he'll come back, that's because there's nobody calling.
Yeah. So I saw Magic Johnson on First Take this past week, and he was asked the question to define a superstar. And I thought he gave a great answer, because you can talk about their play on the field, on the court, and all those things. He said, can you sell out an arena on the road? Said, can you put butts in the seat and bring people on the road? And I thought, what a great answer, because you can do this over any walk of life, from wrestling to music to sports. Who fills seats? Caitlin Clark returned to the WNBA after her quad injury for 3 weeks, and the Caitlin Clark effect, it's about as impressive as anything we've seen, and we've talked about this before. After 3 weeks off, she returned to play against the New York Liberty. The game itself drew about 16,700 fans, second highest number the Fever have done. It did 2.2 million viewers on ABC, third most watched game in WNBA history. I mean, we keep talking about this, but the numbers don't dip. She is the one thing, no offense to anything else, from Paige Beckers to Angel Reese to anybody else, she moves the meter in a way that sport, and mostly we haven't seen in sports very much, she just is different.
Listen, Jay-Z said a long time ago, men lie, women lie, numbers don't. Her numbers don't lie from a playing perspective to an audience perspective. It is unbelievable what she's doing, and I watched both those games against the Liberty, and I watched last night as well. She is at a different level than anybody else, and it's going to be interesting to see how the WNBA protects her, because they're really not doing that right now from an officiating standpoint like they do the NBA superstars, because it's going to wear on her and it's going to affect the product. I did speak with the other day a shoe marketing executive, and they're about to drop this Nike thing with her. Maybe not at the Jordan level, but every girl that plays basketball is going to be wearing a Caitlin Clark shoe. She is at a different level from a marketing standpoint, from even a playing standpoint. I don't know if you saw any of the game, but there was 3 plays in a row where the team she either got the rebound or not, and each shot she took was from 25 to 40 feet, and it was Hall of Famous. It was unbelievable what she can do. They're winning a lot now, and it is really creating. She is the superstar of women's sports overall, not just the WNBA.
So that's a great little segue to talk about what happened last week with the U.S. Open. JJ Spawn, maybe if you're a golf fan, you recognize the name, but it's not going to grab the masses who are just sort of, casual golf fans. Well, Spawn won the Open. He wins $4.3 million. U.S. Open TV ratings, though, Sunday's final round averaged about 5.4 million viewers on NBC and Peacock. That's down 8% from the nearly 6 million that Bryson DeChambeau's one-shot victory over Rory had at Pinehurst. Now, the entire tournament averaged under 3 million viewers, down from 2024's viewership. So, again, it's just one of those reminders of, is there enough star power in these sports that aren't the NFL? And I'll use the NFL as the standard bearer for everybody else to get people to the TV to invest. And JJ Spawn, while a fun story and a great finish, just doesn't capture everybody.
Yeah, if you're a golf fan, It was a great U.S. Open to watch. If you're a casual fan, it's something that came into play. So these numbers are, I believe, a little bit misleading. Number one, you didn't have the stars. I mean, DeChambeau and Rory are at the mecca of the game. So they are part of the face of the franchise. And when they're competing, that even causes the audience to go up. The other problem with this tournament in particular was it was a lot of rain delays, and it was delayed, and even the average fan stopped watching the event. So it took a lot. I think that would have had an effect last year, even with big names. So I think it's all these different factors. But what's great about it is you got to look at the positive. You had some young guys, and JJ's not so young, but he's a guy that everyone likes within the golf community. And you had other young guys that are competing. It just shows that the sport is healthy, and there are going to be new faces to follow. And it's great to see these young guys compete, and it changes his life from not only a short-term impact on making big money, millions of dollars in this tournament, but also an endorsement thing. He had endorsement opportunities before, but now he's a champion for the U.S. Open. So it's bigger than big, and I think it's exciting for the sport. And again, because of the rain delay, I think the numbers are a little bit misleading.
Now, the biggest upset in the entire podcast today is that Hadley quoted Jay-Z. So in case you weren't catching on to that, I did not let that one slip. If you guys would subscribe to this podcast Available wherever you get your favorite podcast. New episodes drop each and every Friday, and you can catch it on the 680 The Fan YouTube channel. Thanks to our very cold producer, Bella. Thanks to you guys for joining us as well. We'll do it again next time on Deals and Deadlines.